How much of an importance do you think the markets will attach to the final, seat figure for NDA? Anything above 325, do you think the markets will be happy with that and not attach too much importance to how much, majority the NDA wins with?
Then the way I read is, I think just go by the exit poll result versus the actual outcome. There is a disconnect to some extent, to large extent, especially certain states like Uttar Pradesh, where the expectation is somewhere around 65 to 70. So as it's at this point of time, I think the number seems to be even lower than that. And the overall numbers which are expected for India as a party, somewhere around 335, 45 number, anywhere around that level. So anything that falls short would probably put I don't think there will be a significant negativities that will come in the market. But definitely what has been the expected that big upside that could come on the base of the government getting formed and that's something probably could take a break given the fact that Indian market has been relative to the rest of the market is trading at higher valuations. Maybe any results that is lower than the expected as per the exit poll policy, exit poll results definitely would have some kind of break in the market. I think that's where we'll have to see it. But I don't think the fundamentals of the economy continues to remain very strong. Once, of course, government gets formed, you'll probably see a significant continuity of what has been carried out already, and nothing will change. And broad fundamentals of the economy continues to show an improvement, whether it with respect to GDP growth or the fiscal improvement or stable currency policy, stable interest rate environment, stable inflation, and Make in India theme. All I think will continue to remain the focus area for the new government as well. I mean, nothing is going to change just because result is lower than expectations. Definitely, it gives some kind of higher leg room for people to think, yes, this thing can also happen. Therefore, should I pay higher valuation for some of these companies in India? I think that's the only debate will come post the results. We'll have to just still wait and see. We have another more results to come. Right now, the numbers are purely on the basis of lead and trailing table. We'll have to just see the final outcome.
Hi Bala, good morning. Good to have you on the show. So one question I wanted to ask is how much dry powder do you think mutual funds have collectively? Because in the last 1 month, we've seen so many NFOs. And prior to this event, obviously, some fund managers have also taken moderate, not too much in terms of cash calls. So how much dry powder do you think all these NFOs put together, plus whatever cash that exists in the market, plus any extra money that might be flowing into mutual funds, what kind of trigger, what kind of impact then they create in the next few days?
I think from a cash level point of view, I don't think there will be a big issue. I just looked at the number last week on the basis of the previous month number, end of the number. The range was ranging from 2%, the least, and the highest was about 9%. And the average cash holding for the large schemes are roughly about 4%. Just imagine about 30 lakh crore size, or maybe 25 lakh crore size on pure equity, and just you take it as a ETF and index funds. Roughly about 36,000 crores kind of cash levels will be there in the mutual funds, all aggregate put together. Maybe about 40,000 crores cash could be there, aggregate put together. And second is SIP flows continues to remain very strong. Therefore, you see the incremental flows coming in. As you rightly mentioned, even NFO collections have been pretty decent. Therefore, enough cash will be there for mutual fund to participate if at all there is any kind of pressure in the prices. So I don't think there will be any pressure both for the redemptions as well as the money managed to actually book profit and therefore increase the cash levels. I don't think that will happen. But if there is a correction, of course, people have enough money to go and buy as well. Even last few months, if you see, mutual fund have been the large buyers. At the same time, I would also assume the NFO collection which has come recently, they all must be in the process of deploying the money. Therefore, that demand could also come. So there is no official number right now is available, but I would assume the number could be anywhere around 3,000 to 4,000 crores kind of number, only for those funds who have collected the money recently. But otherwise, on aggregate basis, we should count roughly about 4 to 5% kind of cash level could be there for the entire mutual fund industry.
So Nandik, this is a big surprise for everybody. What is your reading?
No, my reading is there a bit early. I don't think even 20% of the votes would have been counted. But if the numbers remain where they are, then there will be pressure on the markets to remain where they are. I don't see markets going up if these numbers hold. 300 for India also may not be a bad outcome per se for market. I think some of the correction is happening because yesterday markets rallied by around 3%. So all we are seeing is that, the 3% getting corrected. But if BJP is somewhere on 270, 272, which, is the halfway mark, then further downside pressure may not be there. Markets may not go up, but you may not see a fall as well from these levels if they get to 270.
Joining me is Rahul Arora, who's the CEO of Nirmal Bang. Rahul, great to have you on the show. Not a very good, in fact, not a great day for the market. And given the fact that it is turning out to be a close battle and extremely opposite of what exit polls were projecting, right? So, looking at the screen, do you get a feel that okay, this is out of syllabus? What are your thoughts now?
It's not only the exit polls; it is also the markets. The markets were not anticipating an outcome like this at all.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me on the show. So obviously, it's a bit of an antithesis, so to speak. We were having this discussion internally that, could they have preponed the election last date to Friday and announced the election results on Monday, as opposed to ending the results on Saturday and announcing the results on Tuesday? You would have avoided this kind of volatility. And I think, it's for lack of a better term, I think what's happened in the last 2 days is absolutely senseless. Because you played with investor money by allowing, one set of views to form an exit polls, and the reality is very different. Now, just before coming on your show, I was on the Election Commission website, and I was just looking at the final first tally that they have put out of the 543 seats. The BJP is, I think, at about 237. If you remember in the 2019 polls, the 353 number was broken up into 303 and 50. So even if you theoretically assume that the BJP allies have held on to that 50, you're talking about a very slender majority for the NDA government. The BJP, I think, is now clear it's going to be a minority government. It's not going to be the single largest party, and that the markets have reacted in accordance. Now, what do investors do? My sincere advice, do not try to catch a falling knife. Do not try to think you are smarter than the market. Wait it out. I think this is going to be a very long day in terms of counting and recounting. Let us see what the final tally is. Let us see what the way, shape, and form of the government is, who the prime minister is, so on and so forth. Lots of questions will be answered during the day. There will be enough and more opportunities for you to add to your portfolio, to construct your portfolio. But yes, in the short term, this is definitely a setback because the market was expecting an outcome. And now that we don't know the way, shape, and form of the government and how it is going to eventually add up, one thing is for clear: even if this is an NDA-led government by the incumbent prime minister, it is going to be a weaker government. So the question is, how strong are policy reforms going to be compared to what they were 10 years back? Do not forget, we have a budget in the next month and a half, which the government is incumbent to present. Will the government go more populist if it is the current government that comes back into office? And if that happens, what happens to the fiscal deficit? Also keep in mind, one of the most important states that has worked against the BJP government in this election is Maharashtra. Maharashtra goes into legislative assembly polls in November. That's 5 months away. So all of these things will be kept into, in calculation, and all of this will play out in the next maybe 4 to 6 hours. But single pointed advice to your investors: wait, don't jump into buy today. There will be opportunities, but for today, let the dust settle, let it play out.
Last decade has been extremely good when it comes to wealth creation. Would you say that irrespective of the outcome of this election, the next couple of or the next decade would be as good for wealth creation?
So like you rightly pointed out, Nandita, there's so many things which are right. The GDP numbers came up. Of course, there was a 8.2% GDP growth, which was a surprise. Of course, if you look at the GVA, gross value added, that's only 7.2% growth, because GVA and GDP have a difference of taxes minus subsidies. Subsidies were lower, is why GDP number shows 8.2. Irrespective, the number of 7.2 on the GVA is a great number. The domestic liquidity, like Rahul was also speaking about, is 1 lakh crore for this financial year. FIIs have gone light this financial year. So far, they'd sold about 35,000 till May end. So that's 35,000 crores. That's about $4.5 billion of the $750 billion they own. So they went extremely short, hedging their positions. 87% was their index future short and 13% was the long. So coming back to your pointed question, there are so many things working for the country, of course. But I think that a stable government is very, very critical. You can't brush that that aside, during phases where there's no stable government, Nifty growths have underperformed the earnings growth. When there is stable government, the Nifty price movement has been greater than the earnings growth. If you look at the earnings for the last quarter of Nifty, the growth is 29%. For the full year, we are looking at an earnings number in rupee terms of 970 rupees on a base of 820, which is a great growth again. Next year, our projection for Nifty earnings is 1100. Having said which, a stable, very stable government is what makes the price outperform the earnings growth. So I would say that it is an important function. If NDA does not have more than 300, 305 seats, you could have a short-term lull. But the markets, like I said, could settle not really low. It might give away the gains between the state election and the general election. And I would not consider it as a catastrophic fall like we saw in 2004 or a supernormal rise like in 2009. So I would say that the movement is going to be muted relative to those extreme cases where exit polls during 2004 had predicted a thumping majority for Atal Bihari Ji's government, but that didn't transpire. So I think governments are critical. A stable government is very critical. There are several macroeconomic variables for the country, but a stable government is almost a necessity for prices to outperform earnings of any capital market.
Given the kind of scenario that's playing out, would you say that now that would get delayed, or do you see lesser possibility of that happening and the FIRs remaining in sell mode?
So first
No,
of all,
more importantly, Samir, how shocked are you at this outcome?
No, I am not very short. Obviously, I was very bullish. But anyway, Mahalakshmi, you're talking about capital gains tax, but government would have figured out that first you need capital gains to have a tax, which now there is no need to overdo that tax part. I think that's gone. So FIs obviously now will pause for some time, because again, today most probably will turn out to be a negative number, because the numbers are a little lower than expected. But I am saying look at it differently. Let's say that in the exit poll on Saturday, the polls had shown that the NDA will get around 300 seats and that the BJP will get 250 or 240, whatever they are getting right now. Then how much would the market have fallen over the next 2 days? It would have been plus minus similar, which is down 5-7%. And now over the 2 days, it was up whatever 3% yesterday and down say 5% now. So you are minus 2-3%, and you can add another 3-4% for the next 1 or 2 days. But after that, if the government is the same, if the face is the same, then beyond a point, how much will you hit the market? You can again on the margin change a few stocks if you feel that the government's response to some liberalization, some reform will get back. But everything is not going to change. That would make no sense for the BJP, for Mr. Modi, to say that now I will not do whatever you thought he will do in the sectors that had been doing well. So if there is a complete change of government, that is a different thing, because then the priorities change and the new government deliberately does not do things which the previous government was doing, or they do it under a new name, and all that transition takes 6-9 months. And for that, there is a cost. But if it's the same government with the same faces, then plus minus a little bit, you'll move on in life.
So you are saying that this 272 number for BJP is not important, is going to be taken in a stride, the market will take it?
It is not there. How much will you hit it? Obviously, if it was 272 for BJP, then even this fall would have been considered as unjustified. Or not unjustified, but like sort of ending here. So if you get lower than that, how much will you hit it? Which is very different from how much you'll hit it if there's a complete change of government. Not whether you have a view on the new government or not, but just because the priorities change or their policies are different, and therefore whatever you thought of certain stocks, sectors changes, and therefore the market takes time to figure out what else to do, and maybe you'll buy defensive because there'll be more handouts, this, that, all that changes. Now, little bit will still change as a feedback mechanism for the BJP that what went wrong or right. But if they change 100% of their policies or 60%, I don't think that can be the case. On the margin, they will change a few things.
No, the alternate narrative to that would be that, if there is a coalition, I mean, if 240 if BJP gets 240 and you see, then BJP starts to think about whether they should really push for investments, if there is going to be change in the way they construct the budget. Will it be more populist? Those are some of the conversations
That's
that
what I'm
will
saying.
begin to
That's what I'm
happen. Is that
So on the margin, a little bit, they may realize that they need populism or they need to do something for the middle class and cut taxes, or they may feel that the markets are down and they want to attract capital, so give capital gain tax subsidy. What I'm saying is, on the margin, let us say they say that we'll do a little bit more of subsidy. So what happens to the index? I agree that 3 stocks will fall. But will the index stop going up because of that? Because some other group will go up. That's why we said be a little bit diversified. On the margin, you'll have to change 4 stocks, 5 stocks. Maybe you would have lost in the last round on those stocks. So big deal. We are talking about the market first. That the market is not going to be tied down by these kind of things, because then instead of this, some other B stock will go up. Unless you say everything stalls. And also, how much will you change? Because some things were working and nobody was objecting. Was anybody objecting to India making more roads or giving more power, or that power is shortage, or oil and gas, that there was no price hike? But on the margin, let's say you give a handout and you give the same 8,000, 6,000 rupees to X crore people. So your deficit goes up 20 basis points, which, by the way, in this number last week came out that it was lower than targeted. And for next year, because you got the RBI, this thing, you're anyway starting with $25 billion extra. Now, let us say you spend all of that and that is worth 0.7. So, what happened? What is so wrong beyond a point?